Hey, hi, and howdy, sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new. My name is Courtney, and I do food and kitchen content. That means weekly grocery hauls, these what's for dinner style videos, and on Sunday, I have been sharing what I am eating on the Mediterranean diet. I started it, just me, no one else, but I have been having fun cooking different things just for myself, and I've been sharing that with y'all. So if you're interested in any of that, I hope you will subscribe and stick around. All right, it is time for another What's for Dinner style video, and we are still on the meal prep train, y'all. If you watched last week, you saw that I meal prepped for the whole week, and it was so perfect. It made my life so much easier. You know, it is back to school time. Even as homeschoolers have back to school time. We're back, learning, and we're going to co-op, and we're doing all the things. So time is limited, and this has been a game changer, especially because I am eating differently than the rest of my family. So we're going to meal prep 3 meals that last all week. So budget friendly to make and absolutely delicious. We're going to start off with this sausage, green beans, and potatoes. This is actually one of my favorites. And even though it does have some processed meats and stuff in it, which is something I'm supposed to avoid on the Mediterranean diet, not going to lie, I took a few nibbles because this is so delicious. So I started off with some smoked sausage that I just sliced up. And I am just sauteing that in a little bit of oil with an onion. Now you can use any flavor sausage. Maybe you want the spicy, maybe you just want the regular, maybe you want turkey sausage. It's all good. Just toss it in there and let it cook for a couple of minutes with the onions until the onions start to get a little bit soft. And then I threw in some diced up potatoes. Now I'm using baby potatoes because I had them on hand and I really, really love them. But you can use russets or whatever else you have. It's all good. And we're just going to toss those around and saute a couple of minutes. I did throw in some garlic. I use my confit garlic, which I always link the recipe down below for that. It is literally my favorite kitchen condiment. But, you can use regular garlic or garlic powder. It's totally up to you. Then I'm going to be needing some chicken broth, which if you guys are new here, I never have chicken broth. I use bouillon for everything. So I just went ahead and tossed in the bouillon just because kind of toasting it brings it back to life a little bit before we add the water. I also threw in a little bit of sugar and some red wine vinegar. Now, this recipe for me is a combination of 2 recipes. It is your traditional sausage, green beans, and potatoes, but I'm using the green bean recipe for the Texas Roadhouse green beans minus the bacon because it was a little weird with the bacon. So I will link that recipe down below, and all I do is just make that, but also toss in some potatoes and some sausage. And then I just let it simmer in the broth here, which is, water with my bouillon. I just let everything simmer together for about 20 to 25 minutes until the potatoes are fork tender. I do let some of the water evaporate. I don't keep a lid on it. And the flavor is incredible. It's such a simple meal. Like there's not much to it, but I promise you the flavors are delicious and complex and oh, just one of my favorite things. It's so, so good, and you can't beat how budget-friendly this meal is. All right, meal number 2 is garlic butter chicken and orzo. Yes, I'm using orzo, but if you don't have it, feel free to sub any kind of pasta you want. It's all good. It's all going to be fine at the end of the day. So I've got some chicken breast that I decided to cube up just because I thought it would be a little bit easier mixing it in kind of casserole style. But you don't have to do that. You could just saute your chicken breast or your chicken tenders or your thighs and put them on top of the rest of the casserole. That's up to you how you want to do that. So I've got a little bit of butter and a tiny bit of oil just to kind of keep it from burning. And I threw my cubed up chicken. It's a little bit over a pound of chicken. And we're going to season it. Now I'm just sticking to some pretty basic seasoning as far as the chicken goes. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and paprika. That's pretty much a go-to for some really delicious chicken that doesn't have anything crazy on it. It's just real simple. Most of us have those spices on hand all the time. So that is what I'm doing. However, you don't have to do that. You can put whatever you want. Now, for the rest of this dish, I was going to include some thyme in it just because it has a nice bright flavor. So I did throw a little bit of thyme in here, but you don't have to do that either. You can throw in any herbs you like. I think if you are a lover of rosemary, which I'm not, rosemary would be great in here. Even sage would be good in here. But I just like the brightness of thyme. It's almost like a little bit lemony kind of, but different. And I love it. So I threw that in here. And we're just going to cook the chicken till it's pretty much done. It doesn't have to be done all the way, just mostly done so it develops a little color and flavor on the outside, just like that. And once it does that, we're going to go ahead and just remove the chicken from the pan for a few minutes. Leave the drippings and the oil in there. We have lots more things to cook now. Just set the chicken off to the side, and I decided for the amount of things I'm adding in this pot, I would definitely need to add a little bit more oil in here, so I just threw a little bit more butter in there. It is garlic butter chicken after all, so I feel like it's okay to use a couple of tablespoons of butter today. Plus the flavor is just, you can't beat it. Now we're going to saute some onion. I'm using small onions. If you have big onions, you might want to do like half an onion. That's totally up to you. But we just want to kind of give this a minute to saute and start scraping up the stuff that's on the bottom of the pan. The chicken leaves kind of that brown stuff on the bottom, and that is just pure flavor. And we want to make sure that it gets imparted right back into this one pot casserole style dish. So just the onions and the butter will help you loosen that and just scrape up the bottom of the pan and let those just kind of saute for a little bit. Now, I'm going to link the original recipe down below. Sometimes I kind of vary from those recipes a little bit, and that's what I'm doing today. I wanted some veggies in here. I have tons of these little grape tomatoes on hand because I love them. So I threw some fresh grape tomatoes in there, and I'm going to let them kind of just simmer and saute around. I think they're beautiful, and they release such a nice fresh pop of tomato sweet flavor once you cook them like this. But you can throw in any kind of veggies you want or skip the veggies. It's up to you. Then I threw my orzo in. Now, again, this could be any kind of pasta or it could even be rice. I'm throwing it in now just to toast it a little bit so that it gets a little bit of extra flavor because that's what we want, lots of flavor. We're not using a ton of spices and a ton of ingredients, so we want to make sure that we take every opportunity that we have to develop flavor. Now, here's another dish that calls for chicken broth, which again, I don't have. So I went ahead and sprinkled my bouillon in there. Again, this is just a way to really amp up the flavor. Dried spices, even bouillons, kind of get a little bit old and stale. But if you saute them just for a couple of minutes like this, where we're toasting them, it really brings them back to life and your flavor is going to be so much better. So just take a couple of extra minutes to throw your spices in and let them toast a little bit early, and I promise you will see a difference. I also threw a little bit of thyme in here too, just to brighten it up. Fresh parsley would also be an awesome addition, or any other fresh herb. I just, like I said, really like thyme. And then because, again, I wanted to impart veggies, I'm throwing in a couple of cups of spinach. I think spinach is a beautiful partner for chicken and tomatoes and pasta. And I had a bunch in my fridge that needed to be used before it went bad, so I just tossed it right on in there. I know it looks like a lot. It literally wilts down to nothing, y'all. You could hardly see the spinach at the end of the day. But it was in there and it imparted flavor and some healthiness to this dish. Then I went ahead and threw in the broth, with just water in my case, because I've already got my bouillon in there. And I'm also going to toss the chicken back in there. And then we're going to let this simmer for about 10 to 12 minutes until the orzo is completely cooked. That should be the proper amount of liquid in there and just a little bit extra left over. So just kind of set it off to the side. I don't cover it. And because I am batch cooking for the day, I just shifted this down to the next burner and let it simmer while I was working on another project. But after a couple of minutes, this is what it looks like. You can see everything's kind of expanded. The orzo's soaked up a ton of that liquid. We have a little bit left in there, which is perfect. I'm going to add just a little bit of half and half. It could be cream. It could be milk. It could be almond milk, whatever you have. I just wanted to add a little creamy element in there. So I did that. And then we're going to toss in some Parmesan. I'm just using the green shaker tub stuff. It does not melt as well. Fresh Parmesan would be better. But this is really affordable and it's easy to keep it on hand for long periods of time. And it was perfect in here. So I just threw it right on in there. And everything kind of came together. And the Parmesan cheese kind of forms a creamy sauce. And there you have it. Oh, this one was a good one. There was so much flavor in there. Tons and tons of flavor. I think I forgot to mention that I did throw some garlic in there when I was sauteing everything, but I did throw quite a bit of garlic in there. I will link the original recipe down below so you guys can try it out at home as well. All right, on to the last meal. This is orange chicken stir fry. I've made this before. It was a couple of years ago, and it's super flavorful. It's so delicious and very easy to throw together. So again, I'm starting with some butter and a tiny bit of oil to keep it from burning. And I'm throwing some cubed up chicken in here. Again, I'm using chicken breast, but you could totally do thighs. Whatever you have is fine. Honestly, this recipe could be done with pork as well. So keep that in mind. Whatever's more affordable and whatever you have on hand will be perfect. Now we want to season the chicken. So I'm going to do some onion powder, garlic powder, and ginger to start off with because it is like an Asian inspired dish. A little bit of pepper as well. I'm not adding salt because we're going to be adding other salty ingredients. So I skipped the salt here because we just simply don't need it. And we're just going to let the chicken saute for a few minutes. While it's doing it, we're going to mix up our sauce. So I started off with 3/4 of a cup of orange juice and 1/4 cup of soy sauce, 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. I use the toasted sesame oil, which has an even better flavor, but regular is fine too. But if you can find the toasted, go for it. I threw in some of my confit garlic, but you could totally just do like a teaspoon of garlic powder or just 1 regular clove minced up. And then I threw in a tablespoon of this oyster sauce. It has a really nice flavor. It kind of plays with both the sweetness of the orange juice and the saltiness of the soy sauce. It's really, really good. And then I threw in about 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. And we just want to mix this all together. Again, I'm using the confit garlic, so I kind of mash it just to kind of break it up so that it mixes with everything. Now, back to our chicken. It's still cooking along. It's doing great. We want to make sure it does cook pretty much all the way through, just like that. It's developed a little color, lots of flavor, super delicious. Once it's at that point where it's pretty much done, we're going to throw in a bag of frozen stir-fry mix. Any kind of frozen mix is fine that you like. You could use fresh veggies too, just toss them in with the chicken in the beginning. I just love the ease and the cost effectiveness of using frozen veggies. That bag was like $1 and some change, I think $1.25. And I really bulked up this meal with a lot of veggies, and it was so easy. I didn't have to chop anything. So definitely worth considering using frozen veggies. They are just as good for you as fresh. They are picked at peak freshness, and they're really, really affordable. So just something to keep in mind. I'm going to let that just kind of saute and simmer for a little bit, and then we'll move on to the next step. Once those veggies have finished thawing and they've heated all the way through, we don't have to have them like perfectly hot, but they've definitely melted and some of the water has started to evaporate. There's a little bit left, and that's okay. We're going to add in that sauce mixture that we made earlier with the orange juice and the soy sauce, and we're going to let that simmer. The chicken's going to simmer in it and soak up all that flavor. The veggies are going to simmer in it, and we'll let it just kind of come up to a simmer and do its thing for just a couple of minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and just that way everybody mixes and mingles in the pot, you know. Once it's simmering like this, we're going to go ahead and thicken it up with a cornstarch slurry. That is just some water with a little bit of cornstarch in it. 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to just a little drizzle of water in there. Stir it in, and it almost just immediately tightens up. Now, this is super saucy because we're going to be pouring it over rice, so we do want lots of sauce in there, but we don't want just pure liquid. This is a nice saucy texture. You can see like the gaps when I stir it. You can see the bottom of the pan for a second, so it's thickened up. And that's what it looks like. I just served it over some plain white rice, but it's so delicious and so flavorful. That orange is just so absolutely delicious. All right, y'all, those are 3 easy meals to get you through the week. They're budget friendly, easy to make, and oh so delicious. Your family's going to love them. I have listed or linked all the recipes below. Check it out.